Okay, so my name's Joe Youngblood. I have never stayed the night in Oklahoma. That's a secret you can learn about me. I'm from a small town in Kansas called Emporia, Kansas. Anybody from Emporia? You're kidding me. Go Hornets. I went to a really even smaller high school in the middle of a cow pasture, and I now live in Dallas, Texas. My dream was always to be on this stage, not particularly this one, but talking about marketing stuff. I have a degree in marketing, so that doesn't really mean anything, but I also spend a lot of time doing what I like to call marketing theory. And what that means is I like to try to predict and project what consumers in the future are possibly going to do, and I try to get myself and my clients ahead of the curve early on. I made a prediction a couple years ago that a lot of my colleagues, some in this room, some in the green room back there, thought was kind of ridiculous, and that was that Google was going to disappear as a website and be a voice in your house. And I made this prediction after they purchased Nest Labs, which had this neat little thing that sat up on the ceiling that could easily talk to you with Google's conversational search. You can see the date up there, January 2014. And obviously, if you're paying attention, Google announced that very device in March of this year at Google I/O. I also recently made another prediction that the website will die. And I love Christoph. He just told you things are getting easier and simpler and more intuitive, and heck, you can just talk to things now. So if you put that in perspective, if you could talk to things, I thought there's probably no reason these would exist. And I'm going to walk you through these predictions, but in about 5 to 10 years, it won't be uncommon for a company to tell you they don't have a website, but yet they're doing really good with digital. So before you can predict the future, the first thing you have to do, I've been looking for that, there it is. The first thing you have to do is you have to understand a little bit of science and philosophy. Anybody in here have a physics degree or philosophy degree? 0 people? 1 person all the way in the back? All right, please just bear with me, okay? I'm about to say a lot of things very wrong. So to get this opened up, to get your mind kind of open, I'd like you to stop for just a brief moment and consider the entire universe. And that's what you're looking at, by the way, is the entire universe, the known universe. And I want you to think about the universe as a series of ever-decreasing containers. The big container being the universe, smaller containers being galaxies. Inside of those galaxies, you have solar systems and nebula and pulsars and quasars. And inside of solar systems, you have planets. And on some of those planets, every now and then, you get life. This is the known universe, labeled, by the way. We're in the middle. The Virgo cluster's up there. This is a group. This is brand new of galaxies within the universe known as Laniakea. It's Hawaiian for something that I can't remember because I'm on stage and I'm nervous. But this is a very massive cluster of galaxies that they've discovered through a bunch of really crazy, weird math that I do not understand, nor do I have the will to. But that's not the way the universe works, right? The universe is not a series of ever-decreasing containers. It's actually the exact opposite. It's just easier for us as humans to believe in things bigger than ourselves. And one of the smallest things is an atom. This is something IBM did recently. They lined up a bunch of atoms to make a movie, and then they also made the Star Trek logo, which is pretty cool. And if you've ever taken freshman biology, you might recognize this diagram. See, they start out really small as subatomic particles, and they get bigger and bigger until they create parts of you, which create you. And what's interesting about this is that this doesn't just apply to physical matter that you can hold. It also applies to intangible things like concepts, human ideals, beliefs, and business. There's also something I'd like to talk about real quickly before you can predict the future of anything, of any one of these systems. You have to understand that the universe is an ever-evolving duality between chaos and order. And if you try to break everything down in your life, you'll realize there are times in your life when you yourself have been very chaotic, and things start to feel right when you start moving towards order. This is my Tupperware shelf at home. This is absolute and utter chaos. This isn't even organized chaos, there is absolutely no way I know anything that is on that shelf. I could tell you that cup I got from Louis in South Padre in 2007. This is from a Chiefs game at a bar in Dallas maybe a year or two ago. The rest I have no clue. I don't even know if the lids are, if I have the right number of lids, I have no idea. Right? To some people today, this might be chaos. Let's get it out. I've only got like 15 more minutes. We gotta really go through this. And this is order. When I was rehearsing this talk, I frequently left coffee sitting on my Keurig at home, and it would get cold. And it gets cold through a process known as entropy. Again, I'm going to get this very wrong, but what you need to know is that open containers, open systems tend towards order. Closed systems, closed containers tend toward chaos. You've never seen a missile without a lid on it, right? Because it would tend towards order and it wouldn't be a very good missile. But when you do this right here, what you're seeing is that the heat inside of the cup gradually dissipates into the surrounding environment until they reach a state of order or equilibrium. On the internet, we tend towards order. Nobody got the Highlander joke? There could be only one. No? If you think about it, everybody in this room, I know you've thought about it at some point. It might have been a passing thought, but you've thought about it. You've realized that there seems to be only one really big classified ad website, and that is? Craig, you guys can all talk at once. It's okay. Craigslist. That is? Craigslist. Right, there we go. Thank you for the 5 people that did that. The last guy had the whole room roaring. Okay. There's only, in your mind, only really one search engine, right? And that is? Google. Okay, and there's a Google rep here somewhere today. And there's really only one website to buy books, right? And that is? Right, and there's really only one source of news, and that is? NPR. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Okay, so not in everything do we pick one, but in most verticals we pick one winner, right? So that's what order means. To us as humans, there's only one website that really represents what we want to do. Nobody's going to get the dark side joke either. Yeah, you did? Thank you. I am Entropy. I am death. If you guys haven't seen Justice League War, I don't even know why you're here. So this is a screenshot from Google, who I'm going to bash on a little bit today, but I love Google. But this is a screenshot of the description when you type in the word entropy, right? And I would like you to read the number 2 definition, right? So we don't learn this in business school for some reason, but entropy almost perfectly describes everything happening in this intangible conceptual idea we call a business. Now remember that the universe is a grouping of things that slowly come together to form ever bigger things. And when those ever bigger things come together, they form what's known as an emergent property. And in business, it's no different. When a bunch of humans get together, they form a business, and inside of that business, they form an emergent property. That's a very important concept to remember when we try to predict the future of this system we're looking at. One of the final things we need to talk about philosophically is the meaning of life, and I'm running out of time, so I'm going to try to breeze through this. Okay, there's the physics meaning of life. It's really depressing. According to physics, you only exist to dissipate heat away from the system. Okay, you only exist on Earth because it's warm here relative to the rest of the universe, and entropy wants that to even out. If you asked my girlfriend who's sitting over here in the corner, I'm going to embarrass for a second, the biological meaning of life, she would tell you, she's a zookeeper, she would tell you that it's to procreate and spread the species. I take it a step further and I say, the intelligent meaning of life is that you want to procreate, but you want to make sure that the next generation can do more with the same amount of energy input that you had. And then obviously there's a business meaning of life. They don't word it this way in college. But you might have learned this, the going concern assumption, which is that your business will exist into the foreseeable future. You could put that another way, and you could say that the generation of the business that exists today, your job is to make sure that the generation that exists tomorrow can do just a little better than you, right? Very similar things. Okay, and you finally need to know this one. This is a neuroscience concept called the predictive brain. It started really gaining ground in 2010. This is from the Frontiers in Human Neurosciences journal. And I just want to real quickly go through intelligent life. There's a couple different types. They use things called trust and greed. I'm running out of time. We got to breeze through this. All right, you guys know what trust and greed are? There's two different types of intelligent life. There are people and kings. If you don't own a company and you're not a millionaire or a billionaire sitting in this room right now, you're probably a people. People use trust. Kings use greed. Right? And again, you're all just trying to do the same thing. You're just trying to get a better future for whatever comes after you. You just do it a little differently. Trust, we work together. Greed, I take from you, but I convince you that you're working with me. That's what greed is. Right? And there's an interesting thing about kings in a system. The king of a system doesn't like to lose their crown. Amazon wouldn't walk up to Walmart tomorrow and be like, you know what, I think we're done with this. We're going to hang up the retail thing. We're okay. No, they just don't like to do that. And there's a couple ways to topple a king. I won't cover this, but you should read Machiavelli's The Prince if you ever are interested in it. But show of hands, who's an SEO in this room? Right, your goal isn't to get to number 7, right? You don't tell your client, hey, we're gonna get to number 7 and it's gonna rock. No, you say we're gonna get to number 1. Well, when you get to number 1, you're toppling a king. You're taking out somebody bigger than you or who was at one point bigger than you, right? And the mortal enemy of kings, the number one way to do that is information. They don't want you to get that information. That's the beautiful part of the internet, is you have access to information. Okay, tools, kings will do a lot of this crap. We'll cover that in the deck later. Okay, a couple more things you gotta know to predict the future of a system like search is you have to understand that search exists for you to find things, and that's actually part of human psychology. We call it the consumer decision-making process. Now you can see there number 2, this is from a textbook that predates the internet, by the way. And so number 2, they called it information search. So psychologists have actually called it that for a long time. We know that this is what happens. You also have to understand that Moore's Law does exist. This is cherry-picked data by a guy named Ray Kurzweil we'll talk about here in a second. But the point is that computers get faster and faster. They existed in 1900, right? And they're way faster and they're way cheaper today than they were back then. You also need to understand, this is a quote from a sci-fi author, what today you would call a futurologist, and this is very poignant. Beware of he who would deny you access to information, for in his heart he dreams himself your master. If somebody lies to you, it isn't because they think it's for your benefit. Okay, sometimes maybe, right? But it's most often because they're trying to pull one over on you for their own benefit. Information is an interesting thing, by the way. This just came out today. I saw it on Reddit. You can see here that it's the exact same information, but it's portrayed differently. Forbes wants you to believe there was some mysterious thing happening, and NASA said, hey, we had a satellite fall back to Earth, totally normal, right? So it just depends on how you talk about it. I believe Christoph covered that pretty well. Okay, I also want to cover Godin's law. Crap, I'm running out of time. Okay, each day that Moore's law progresses, diffusion of innovation continues, and technology systems remain relatively open, the probability that a single human being anywhere on planet Earth can access all of human information instantaneously approaches 1. Essentially, that means that every day, the probability that human beings will be 100, 1,000 times smarter than they ever have been gets closer to 1. You heard the stat earlier about people in Latin America from ZEF using cell phones. Seth Godin has this idea that he gave in his 2007 book and TED Talk called A Purple Cow. We need to know about those. Technical coalescence, when 2 or more separate technologies can be performed with a very small form factor, they tend to get combined, right? I existed when we had digital cameras and cell phones, and it blew my mind when I got an iPhone with a camera in it. But it was eventually going to happen, right? It was just something that we knew was going to occur because cameras were digital and phones were digital and the chipsets were really small. This is what it looks like, and I'm super running out of time. Okay, this is what Google thinks their final form is going to look like. Google thinks that they are going to be part Kryptonian and part the best detective in the history of mankind. That's what they really think is going to happen. It could end up looking more like this. Thank you so much for getting that joke. Okay, so let's predict the future in 5 minutes. Okay. All right, so remember, the future isn't very difficult to understand if you know a lot of different things. Steve Jobs said in a commencement address just before he passed away that connecting the dots into the future can be difficult. I'm going to butcher this quote, I'm sorry. But looking back, it's really easy to connect the dots together. And I'm not a huge Steve Jobs fan, but that really spoke to me because it's actually not very difficult. This is from a game by that same sci-fi author, Sid Meier. And this is called a tech tree. Any gamer in the room will recognize a tech tree. You have to do one thing, and then that one thing gives you the ability to maybe do this thing, and then you get to do this thing, and then those give you the ability to do this thing until you're like the best person in the game, and then you win the game, right? Well, that's essentially how the future works. You do this one thing today, and whether you know it or not, you're actually leading up to doing this other thing in the future. If we had never had binary code, right, we wouldn't have what we have today in computer code. If Alan Turing never existed and cracked the Nazi codes, then you probably don't have the same type of computers you have. If Steve Jobs told Steve Wozniak to F off that he thought personal computers were dumb, you don't get an iPhone today, right? So these tiny little decisions you make today have a big impact on the future. And this is what Google does currently, or ever evolving away from it. But this is what they tell you that their whole mission statement is, that their goal is. This is the reality. So remember that consumer decision-making process? Google takes a bunch of inputs, they take a bunch of data, they try to keep you from going to other places to perform these mental processes, and then they also get you to use things, the middle one's brand new, but they try to get you to make a purchase either through Google or because of Google directly. And effectively what I'm trying to tell you, what I'm trying to get across here is that the internet, the World Wide Web, this system of order, this open system that anybody can build a website on, Google thinks it's going to be to the new Google what Encyclopedia Britannica is to Wikipedia today. It's a source of data that they needed to exist. They had to take all of that data and put it into their system through these, through these various mechanisms to get to the form they're trying to go to, but the form they're trying to go to they think is going to be more popular than and more useful to mankind than the World Wide Web. Okay, and I call this a task completion engine. It's essentially a predictive, proactive, and fast digital entity that exists to do your bidding, right? It exists to do things for you without you doing them. It's not the only one that exists. I don't know if you can read that or not. If anybody knows anything about Halo, this is hilarious. But if not, you don't get it at all. But so Google's not the only one going this direction, right? Microsoft is going this direction, Apple, Amazon. There's a company called SoundHound that made an app called Hound. It's their stated goal that Hound will do everything for you. It'll hound you, I guess. That was also a joke, but forget about it. Okay. And then we actually have some recent evidence. Oh crap, 2 minutes. Okay. So this is that guy I talked about earlier. This is Ray Kurzweil. Google hired him in 2012. Now, Ray Kurzweil and his buddy, Peter Diamandis, they are big supporters of an idea called the technological singularity. This is an idea that technology will come together to create an intelligence more intelligent than any human being that ever existed. Yes, even more intelligent than Einstein himself, more intelligent than Archimedes, Leonardo da Vinci. They believe that. They hired him in 2012. If you look up the singularity in Google, it's really interesting. Google actually highlights the stuff by Ray Kurzweil, but there's an interesting thing down there called the Singularity University. Well, guess what? Google co-founded that with Ray Kurzweil and Peter Diamandis, who's the other man pictured. So even before they hired him, they were already supporting this idea. In 2010, the New York Times ran an article about Sergey Brin, co-founder of Google, stating that Sergey Brin is known to tell people that he wants to create an intelligence smarter than mankind and he doesn't want to die. So remember, it's really important. I actually think I forgot to tell you this earlier. It's easy to predict a system when you know what they think the future outcome is going to look like. And if the future outcome is keeping Sergey Brin from dying and Larry Page from completely dying, and the human brain is a predictive algorithm, it makes sense that the smartest brain trust would have this emergent property to try to achieve that. This is Sundar Pichai and Google I/O just a few months ago, beginning of this year. These are quotes directly from him on stage. right? The most important I want you to look at is the very bottom. They believe there will be a huge leap forward in the next 10 years. I believe that he means he is eliminating the need for websites to exist. But he also says something very interesting. We've evolved significantly over the past 10 years. Well, here's what they did 10 years ago. 10 years ago, they launched what is now today Google Wallet. It was Google Checkout. They bought YouTube. Right? They started expanding Google Translations and released Google Calendar. These are all sources of data that they're pulling to try to make this brain more intelligent. All right? They've also been withholding information. Any SEO in the room knows that not provided is annoying. I actually had a Twitter conversation with John Mueller of Google just last week, and he said he wants keyword data back, but that as a consumer, he's totally fine with us not getting it, and that Google will never give it back to you. Remember, that's a problem. That means they're trying to hide something. They're also not using open standards. There's an open standard for voice-powered devices that all the technology giants got together and made in the late 1990s, sans Google, and yet Google's ignoring it. They released their own voice standard, but they tell you that they support standards. And your only hope, oh crap, I'm out of time, is to be innovative, right? Rockets have been around forever, but there's two companies right now innovating rockets, making them cheaper, making them more efficient, making them land after being used. Sometimes innovation is kind of terrible. I was going to say sometimes it's kind of crappy, but I thought that would. All right, so here's how to stand out to an AI engine. Your reviews. I don't know if you noticed the exclamation marks. I don't know if I added enough. But remember when they build an AI engine, they train it. And if it gets trained that things that have good reviews typically are good things for them to talk about when they're having these conversations and they're eliminating the web, then they're going to keep that information. Anybody in here play Pokemon Go? Get the whole room? Yeah, that's awesome. You'll know that the Pokestops are based on uniqueness, right? Little items, little unique things that are physical that you can see when you go there. That's very important to take note of, because that means it was important to a guy who created, by the way, Google Maps, and then created this game called Ingress that Google funds, by the way. So it seems that they think uniqueness is very important. Write in good, easy to understand sentences. I've actually had a career of tricking bots. Before Panda, bots used to go out and scrape content, and we started writing things like, why is LeBron James moving to Dallas? Just to get the bot to steal it, to get a link, because they would scrape it, put it on a website, we'd get that link, and then a bunch of people would comment and wonder why LeBron was moving to Dallas. It was really funny. So when you know, sorry. Well, my point is when you know what the bots are looking for, you can kind of get ahead of it and start doing that now. Here's some more predictions. This is what Google thinks the future searcher is going to look like. This guy is actually performing a search right now. According to Google, in 5 years, they probably think that they're going to have a sensor in the house that watches him do this and says, well, when he does this on a Friday and he kicks his shoes off, he typically orders a six-pack and some pizza. So I'm going to order that for him. It's very possible that this is what searchers in the future are going to look like. I wanted to make two predictions on stage today that have already been fulfilled. Earlier this week, Google bought a company called API.ai, and then they bought another company whose stated purpose is to be able to track fast-moving objects within a city, like cars, things like that, and use that dynamic data to do some other things like trajectory-based ads and stuff like that. So that was up there, but it already happened. There's a bunch of other stuff. I don't think you guys are going to ever get keyword data in PPC, folks. I think Google's taking that away from you too. If you think enhanced campaigns or whatever the one-click easy campaign was are terrible, I think they're moving in a direction where they take more and more and more data from you until you don't miss it. And then you're going to have voice ads. So eventually you're going to buy an ad that tells people to do something. And I'm way over time. I'm so sorry. And this is a pretty bold one, but I think by 2020 there's going to be a new search engine emerge, and that Google has reached its apex. Google employees in the room, please don't lynch me. But I believe Google today, what you're seeing is a giant that has hit its peak, and somebody's going to come up and take their crown, just like Google did to Yahoo, just like Facebook did to MySpace, just like Reddit did to Dig. I think we're going to see that happen here pretty soon. I'm running out of time. I was going to go into a bunch of automated card stuff, but skip that. I've got other predictions. I think we're going to travel interstellar space in 65 years. I'll be dead, but that'll be really cool. And just like HTML came out of the open web and websites came out of the open web and apps came out of mobile devices, I think you're going to see a new way to display content. I'm not entirely sure what that is. I've got some guesses that I can't give you because I'm over time and he's staring at me weird. Oh yeah, this one's my favorite one, by the way. I think food in the future, Jesus, I'm so sorry. Food in the future, I think when you go to McDonald's and you order and it's not too far away, I think they're going to be like, oh, we see you're on the low sodium diet without you ever saying a word. We made you a Big Mac with no salt added. Here you go. Right? We took out the high fructose corn syrup and crap like that. Okay, that's me. That's my talk.
Thank you, Joe. I have to say, I've never seen that talk before.
Yeah, no, I didn't think so. That was original and unique. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I sort of feel like I've stepped inside your brain. And on the one side, there's chaos. And on the other, there's order.
Yeah, there's like a fight between the two.
There is.
Yeah,
there absolutely is. So Josh Weem from Google
Yeah.
is coming up next. He's the next speaker. And I think we should just, I'll bring the chair back, and you can sit up here, and you can just kind of lob difficult questions at him while he's talking.
Well, they're going to have a lot of difficult questions to answer in the next couple of years.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. So Sergey Brin doesn't want to die.
Doesn't want to die.
Who wants to die, Joe? Nobody wants to die. I don't want to die.
It's the natural order of things.
No, but this is true. So I don't even know what to say. Right? So many predictions. At one point, you predicted your own death.
Yeah.
But before a certain year, you said, "But I'll be dead by then." You included a prediction of your own death in this presentation.
It's based on pretty good data. Serious. My dad has Huntington's. My grandma died from it. They can't cure it, so if I have it, it'll kill me. On my mom's side, diabetes is rampant. Heart disease. Don't laugh. This is actually really serious stuff. They're going to make a lot of advances, but even with AI's help, the likelihood of reaching a cure for any of those before I shuffle off the mortal coil is pretty low. So,
Well, have you emailed Sergey? You should basically...
I'm going to ask Josh for his email.
You should, yes.
Yeah.
You should get a job at Google
Yeah.
and live forever.
Well, I mean, they hired Ray Kurzweil, so they probably don't need me, but, maybe.
You never know.
Yeah,
Put in the groundwork now. You never know what can happen in the future.
exactly.
Or maybe you do already. Okay, well, thank you very much, Joe.
Thank you.